In this video, I've got 3 ways to nail your exposure every single time using the Panasonic GH5. If you're new here, my name is Caleb and I've been doing freelance video production since 2012, but this channel is to help you make your own videos, whether you just started or you've been making them for a while, whether you use the GH5 or any other camera. If that's something you're interested in, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Now, I know I've done some exposure videos in the past and I encourage you to go check those out, but this one is a very quick tutorial on really, I think, the 3 best ways to get perfect exposure on the Panasonic GH5. And this is really going back to the basics of the GH5, and it would be very similar on like the GH5 Mark II or the GH5S. So if you have any of those cameras, it'd be a very similar setup to what I'm going to be doing here. If you're like me, you might be a run and gun type GH5 user, and that's where the zebra stripes come in super handy when gauging exposure. So when you're monitoring your video on this little LCD screen, the zebra stripes are going to tell you what is overexposed, but you need to set those zebra stripes to the different types of color profiles that you're using, and that's where this comes in. And let's take a look at the menu right here. So I'm going to go in and we're going to set the zebra stripes, and we're going to go to the 3rd menu option and go to monitor display, and then somewhere in here within these 7 or 8 different categories, you'll find zebra pattern, and that is where we're going to set our zebra patterns. Now, it is going to depend, like I said, on the color profile that you're using. A lot of times I'm using the natural color profile, and so what I'm going to do is actually set my zebra 1 to 95, and that is going to peak those highlights out at 95%. So I know that in my image, anything above there, I'm not going to get any of that information in those highlight areas. And the 95% would be the same for like the Cine-like D profile if you like using that color profile. So I'm going to go there, set my zebra 1 to 95%, and then I am good to go back to the screen. And then I can tell once I start overexposing my image, like things here look pretty good, but once I start overexposing my image, let's just take the ISO up. So now you can start seeing some of those zebra stripes creep in. So I can take it up even higher, and now it's really just all zebra stripes. So I know that image is going to be overexposed. So I just take my image down to where those zebra stripes just disappear. Now, one of the things that you want to do when you expose your image with zebra stripes is really just take it all the way up until you're just getting those zebra stripes. So once you start seeing those zebra stripes kind of creep into the image, maybe take it 1 notch down, and then you know that you're going to have a really well exposed image as a final product. So I said natural color profile is at 95%, Cine-like D is at 95%. So if you're using Vlog L, then you're gonna wanna set your zebra stripes at 80 because it is a light version of Vlog, and so you don't have that full curve, and so you're gonna set your zebra stripes at 80 as the peak. And if you like using the HLG color profile, which is, I think, a fantastic color profile, you're gonna wanna set your zebra stripes peaking at 90. And like I said, take your image just right up to where those zebra stripes are starting to show, and then you know you're gonna have a well exposed image. So the next tool that we're gonna use kind of goes along with the zebra stripes, is actually going to be the waveform. So we can go in here and we can actually set the waveform on our screen on the GH5, and we just go to the very first menu setting, and then we just go down to waveform vector scope, and we click on that and we can punch in the waveform. So it's not showing up on my screen recording here, so I'll just take a shot of the back of the camera with my phone. So this is the waveform on the GH5, and so you have this solid line right up at the top, that's going to be 100, and then the bottom solid line that you see is going to be 0. So the highlights and the darks right there, and so you can see that this gives an overall view of what the image looks like, and as soon as you put something in there, you know it's going to adjust the image so that you can see what is exposed properly and what's not exposed. And this is where you need to learn your IRE figures. So your IRE figures kind of determines where the different exposure parts fall on this waveform. So if you're exposing for, let's say, skin tone, if you're shooting, you know, some kind of interview, and this is where maybe having a gray card comes in handy, because you can put that gray card up, which represents skin tones, and you can really determine where that falls on this waveform in between, you know, 40 to 60, depending on what color profile you're using, and you want to be able to nail that on this waveform. So I would highly suggest using some type of gray card, maybe something like this, and you can really determine where that gray would fall on this scale. But it'll also show you different parts of the scene and where those fall on the exposure scale. So if part of the scene is really dark, you'll see that it will be near that 0 line on the waveform. Now, a lot of times I'm not using the waveform for B-roll exposure. I'm using it mostly for interview exposure and making sure I have whoever is in the video have them exposed correctly. But the waveform is something that you're going to want to take advantage of on the GH5. All right, the third tool that I'm going to talk about is the histogram. Now, the histogram is not something that you want to fully and solely rely on. These other two, like the zebra stripes and the waveform, are going to be a more accurate representation, but the histogram is going to give you a good overall feel of what the exposure looks like on your GH5. So let's go into the menu, and what we're going to do is go to, again, that third option, go to monitor display, and then somewhere in here you're going to have the histogram option, and we're going to click on that, and we're just going to turn it on. Now what you can do is move this anywhere on the screen that you'd want it. Usually I kind of keep it right over to this side, and so we can exit out of that and go back to the main screen, and now we have that histogram right on our monitor that we can kind of keep on all the time, just to give us an overview of where this image falls. Now you can see that the image I have here is actually kind of on the darker side. So like the left side of the histogram is going to represent your blacks, and the right side of the histogram is going to represent your whites. And so we can, you know, make some adjustments as we go. And now you can see that this might be a little bit better balanced of an image, and I just bumped the ISO up just a little bit. So like I said, the histogram is not going to be something that you're going to want to fully rely on, because it doesn't always give the best representation of the image. A lot of times in like photography, you would use the histogram a little bit to kind of balance out the image, but things are changing so much in video that sometimes the histogram is just going to be shifting like that, and it'd be better to kind of monitor your exposure with more of like the zebra stripes and the waveform. But I like having the histogram on my screen just to kind of give just an overall feel of where I'm at in the image, and if I need to move it to the right just a little bit and expose a little bit higher, that way I know kind of where things are. So those are the 3 tools that I use to pretty much nail exposure every time on the GH5. But let me know down in the comments if there's anything else that you do to nail your exposure when shooting with the GH5 or any other GH5 models. I'd love to get a conversation started down there. Well, that's all I have for this video. Hopefully it's helpful and you can go out and start shooting this weekend. If you have time, maybe stick around, watch one of these videos that's popping up on your screen right here. That'd be much appreciated. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.